Really excited for as we've been talking about it all morning. We have a real special guest this morning. Somebody that even before he was in his current role had been a supporter of ACSA. Really was adamant about hearing the perspectives of our members of our organization, and now in his current role as the state attorney general. Obviously, I don't know if his ears have been burning because his name has been brought up multiple times this morning. We're happy to have Attorney General Rob Bonta here with us this morning. Good to see you, sir. Thank you for joining us. One question right off the bat, and before there's obviously, and I think we may have, we'll test this out here, well, your audio. We've been talking a lot about all the issues that we'll get into, but maybe before we go there, if you could just give, some people know your story real well. Some people, anytime we have some of our elected officials here with us, it's like, okay, what motivated you to jump into, to this craziness in public office? Maybe just give us a little bit about your why, your the trajectory of your career, and obviously it's gotten you to this point of serving in this, especially at this moment, as we're going to get into. What's been your story? What's been your why to get to this, to get here today?
Yeah, thanks, Edgar. I appreciate it. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, super. Well, thanks for inviting that. I come from a family of activists and advocates who looked out into the world and believed they could change it. And I saw them do it. It inspired me. I was born in another country. My mom is an immigrant from the Philippines. She grew up there, came to America for the first time when she was 28 years old. She met my father at that time, and they met in Berkeley in 1965. And so my dad was involved in the civil rights movement. He had a friend who invited him to come out to Selma, Alabama, and encouraged him to do so by sending him audio cassette tapes of Martin Luther King Jr. across the country. And my dad listened to these tapes, heard this voice, heard this vision, and decided he had to go to where this man and this movement was, to Selma, Alabama. He jumped on a train, rode it for 3 days, arrived in Selma, met Stokely Carmichael, was in Brown Chapel AME Church when Martin Luther King Jr. Showed up for an unannounced sermon. And so he saw Martin in church in Selma in 1965. And he organized for voting rights, for civil rights. He helped make bring our nation closer to that promise of being a more perfect union, to be more fair, to be more just, to take on inequities. And so I'm very proud of that. When my parents got married, they moved to the Philippines and had me. And shortly after my birth, they asked themselves if they could raise me there and ensure that I had freedom and democracy and the rule of law and civil rights. And their answer was no, unfortunately. So they brought me to California and wanted to seek opportunity for me, a better life for me, for us, for our family. And they also realized that you can't just hope for the things that you want. You can't just put your chin on your elbow, look out the window, hope and wait. You have to fight. You have to be engaged. You have to be active. And so they started working for the United Farm Workers of America. They started collecting signatures as part of the lettuce boycott outside of supermarkets. And then we got invited, our family, they got invited to serve the UFW in the headquarters in La Paz in the Central Valley. And so that's where some of my early years were spent, formative years. My dad worked in the front office with Cesar Chavez. My mom worked in the preschool with Dolores Huerta. My dad helped set up healthcare clinics for farm workers across the nation, the people who are feeding our state, feeding our nation, who deserved more dignity, more respect, a fair contract, fair and safe working conditions. They fought for all that. And we lived in a trailer. My brother was born when we were there, and my parents got $5 a week for their service to the movement. And later I moved to Sacramento. I grew up in Sacramento. Starting in first grade, went to public schools there, went to Pershing Elementary School, Winston Churchill Middle School, and Bella Vista High School. Go Broncos. And part of what I remember most from those early days and going into my teen years was going with my mom to protests and rallies and demonstrations, calling out the human rights abuses of the dictator that had taken over in the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos, and demanding that democracy and the power of the people be restored. And I always wondered what some little boy and his mom in another country, literally an ocean away, could do to change that state of affairs in another country. And year after year, we would do this. And I realized year after year that we weren't alone, that there were more and more people joining the movement. It was building, it was getting stronger. People in America, people in the Philippines, demanding something different, demanding a democracy, until the People Power Revolution 14 years later ushered in democracy back to the Philippines. So that is my why, the
I love
belief
that.
that we can change the world for the better, that we have agency. We don't just have to take it and accept the unacceptable. We can change it. We can make tomorrow more fair than today, if we activate, if we engage, if we commit to each other and to a better future together.
I love that. Thank you, Attorney General. And thank you for, I know I dropped that question on you. You didn't even know it was coming, but just I think you sharing that opportunity. I'll echo one of our members, Carrie Adams, notes that, we need, especially at this moment, we need more opportunities to hear modern immigration stories. And I think just the power of just hearing that. So thank you for sharing that. Speaking of immigration, let's jump into that issue in terms of, in your role as Attorney General. I don't have to tell you, we've been, like they said at the beginning, we've been referencing your statements and your actions, and appreciate the work that your office has been doing in terms of giving resources, especially to our schools, but to our broader communities on this immigration enforcement. That there's heightened sense of fear, regardless, and we were talking about this earlier, regardless of the practical implications of policy or whatnot. There's just folks in community are scared right now, right? Just in terms of just the narrative of what's happening. What's your message to school leaders today who are deeply concerned about their immigrant students and their families?
I share your concern, and I want to say to our immigrant communities in California and beyond, and the education leaders and school leaders like all of you who support them and lift them up, that I see you, I value you. I will fight for you. I will defend your rights. I will defend your freedoms. I've been thinking about you for months, preparing for the possibility of this administration and all of the horrific, xenophobic, hateful, racist things that have been said about immigrants. And I will use the full authority of my office, the full force of the law, to defend you, to protect you, and to make sure that your rights are honored and that you are protected. We have strong protections in California. We have our commitment from law enforcement, legally required, that law enforcement will focus on combating crime, regardless of the immigration status of the individual, and not participate in, not investigate, not conduct any arrests for, not do any other further enforcement for civil immigration enforcement. That is the role of the federal government. They are allowed to do it under the law if they do it lawfully. But the state resources of our law enforcement will not be used for that. Our immigrants make America great, make California great, are such a critical part of who we are, who we've become, and who we will be, and drive us to be the 5th largest economy in the world. In every space and place where progress is made and innovation occurs, immigrants are at the forefront. Mm-hmm. And so we will continue to do everything in our power to protect our immigrant communities and defend those rights. We had to start defending the rights of communities on day one from immigrant families, including the right to birthright citizenship of children born here. That was attacked on day one through an executive order, through a attempted stroke of the pen by Trump to outlaw birthright citizenship, a constitutional right, clear as day in the Constitution. He sought to amend the Constitution and strip away that right on day one. We took him to court, and we have halted that unconstitutional action, and we'll continue to fight for our communities, make sure that their rights are honored, and California has strong protections in place. So it's important to know those rights, share those with communities. There are certain protections that apply to sensitive locations, including schools. And, we can't have immigration enforcement is not allowed mm-hmm. in non-public workspaces. They can come to places where the public is allowed, but not non-public work places like classrooms mm-hmm. and office space and other places. So we've shared guidance in the past. Hopefully it's helpful. We're open to any additional conversations with you and your members to help make sure that we're doing everything lawfully in our power to protect our immigrant communities.
Yeah, I mean, one of the kind of themes that's developed today is that while actions matter, these words do matter, right? And I think what you just said right now, it strikes personal to me. I mean, before you got on, I was telling a little bit about my story, and I'm the son of immigrant parents who were undocumented, right? And have gone to become very productive citizens of this country, similar to what you just talked about, that story so often. I was talking to a member yesterday who was saying that, like, their students, while having this fear that about everything going on, that they at least that they're thankful they live in a state like California when we're able to reiterate all the protections that you just spoke to. So long-winded way of saying thank you for sharing that, and appreciate your efforts on that front. On that note, we have also a lot of educators who would 100% agree with everything both you said, that we may have said before about protecting their students, but may feel like they're in the crossfire, right? Like, I want to protect my students, but they're also hearing about them potentially being responsible or liable or worried if there's conflicting state and federal law, right? So what's kind of the message from the Attorney General's office, obviously, to a lot of folks, and we're looking at it from an education standpoint, but I know a lot of our local leaders, officials are kind of caught in that conundrum where they're hearing the narrative, we want to be as protective as possible. What advice could we give them?
Yeah, first I'll say I understand. I understand the confusion, the uncertainty, the anxiety, the mixed messages, perhaps coming from the federal government and the state. And I want to be absolutely clear that state law has very strong protections for immigrants. Those are not taken away by federal law, federal action, executive order, executive fiat that has been attempted in the past, where the federal government seeks to condition funding, for example, on the states changing their position on their policy within their state. And it's been held illegal in the past. We've challenged it. For example, there were public safety grants that were being provided by the federal government, and under the Trump administration 1.0, the administration said, we'll only give you these grants if you change your policy around immigration enforcement and start participating and using resources and people to help enforce along with ICE and federal agencies. And that was struck down by a court. So the laws of California remain intact. They are strong. They protect immigrants. I don't want to be unclear about this. The federal government has a lawful role to play when it comes to immigration enforcement. They may engage in immigration enforcement. They may do it if they do it lawfully, if they're not violating due process, if they're not violating equal protection rules and detaining folks in violation of the Fourth Amendment, or using protected class status like race or other protected classes to identify who they're going to engage with and seek to enforce immigration laws with. They can be involved and they can do their job if it's done lawfully, but the state shall not. That is the law of the state of California, that the law enforcement agencies and departments in California will not participate in that immigration enforcement. So I understand the confusion. This has sort of been it's been a whirlwind review in just the last 3 weeks of different constitutional provisions, separation of powers, with Congress's power of the purse, how the Constitution provides rights like birthright citizenship that even a president cannot take away. And this is another part of that we have we have federalism in our system, meaning we have a federal government and we have states, and all the powers not provided to the federal government are reserved to the states or the people. That's what the 10th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says. And California has strong states' rights. They're all intact, and they protect immigrants in many ways.
No, I appreciate that. I know it goes without saying, ever-changing environment, one that I'm sure we're going to continue to update and provide resources on as things develop both in DC and in Sacramento. Switching gears to, I know you've been vocal also on another front, given some of the actions or even the talk coming out of Washington, D.C., as it relates to the LGBTQ plus community, transgender students specifically. I know this is another issue we've talked a lot about, that for students, for a lot of folks in this community, they are hearing all of these headlines. They're hearing, that this is being changed, that one thing is being changed, and it gives this feeling of just that they're other, that they now maybe are a community that's different than others, and maybe that their rights are being diminished. What laws and states and regulation, what support from the California perspective? I know you've been vocal on this front. What do you have to say about just what's happening on that front with the LGBTQ plus community and transgender community specifically?
I'll first say that California has very strong laws that support our LGBTQ plus community generally, our transgender community specifically. Those protections that support the rights that are given remain in place. They're in our Constitution. They're in California statute. They have not changed, and I will defend them and I will enforce them. It's very unfortunate that the president is trying to wage culture wars and target and attack communities based on their gender identity. It's wrong and it's hateful, and we're not going to accept it. And we know that there are executive orders that he's signed, and that creates confusion as well. And that there's fear and anxiety because of that, where members of the transgender community, the LGBTQ plus community, might not be sure where they stand. I'll tell you where I stand and where California stands with you. We have your back. We support you. You have rights. You have protections. We will defend you. And we're pushing back against these attacks from the federal government. Our LGBTQ plus community has rights, including the right to an education and equal protection under the law. That's protected by the U.S. Constitution and by the state constitution and state statutes. In California, our state constitution provides a separate and strong protection, making it clear that transgender and gender nonconforming individuals are a protected class who cannot be discriminated against, who cannot be targeted. That includes things like forced outing policies that target transgender and gender nonconforming individuals. They are illegal. They violate the law. They discriminate against vulnerable students. They violate their right to privacy. They make them vulnerable to emotional and psychological and physical harm. A direct contradiction to a school's duty to protect and educate and support all students. So we have gone to court on this issue, thanks to our lawsuit and interventions. The state court blocked permanently Chino Valley Unified School District from instituting a forced outing policy at their schools. And since then, the state enacted a new law that prohibits forced outing policies in our schools. Similarly, for our curricula, California has strong laws that require that curricula, books, instructional materials reflect the diversity of our state, the roles and contributions of our diverse population. We also have strong laws protecting access to gender-affirming care. There's an executive order where President Trump has threatened to pull funding from healthcare institutions that provide gender-affirming care. I sent a letter recently reminding these healthcare institutions that gender-affirming care is something that must be provided in California, and there are laws that protect that care, and that it should continue to be provided to the transgender community. So a lot of different components to these attacks. It's horrific to see, but please know that California stands with, and I stand with, and for, and in support of our LGBTQ plus community and our transgender community.
Attorney General, as we're getting to the top of the hour, I want to squeeze one more topic from you. I know this is another piece that has been big with our members, that campus safety has increasingly been an issue that of urgent concern, from threat of gun violence to online targeting and harassing students and educators. I know it's an issue you've dealt with as well. Your office has been working to ensure both the safety of students and educators, board members, from rising incidents of violence, given just the overall climate. What should folks know on that front?
Absolutely. Thank you. And first, I'll say thank you to all of our educators for fighting for our children, for loving them, for supporting them, for lifting them up, for supporting our parents, and making our educational ecosystem strong, supportive, loving, and successful. And I'm so sorry that you are having to deal with threats to your safety and to see threats to your students' safety. That's not something that we should have in our schools, and it's never normal. It's not acceptable, and we need to continue to push back and make sure that our schools are safe places in all ways, physically, emotionally, and public safety is my top job. I'm the top cop. I'm the chief law enforcement officer. Public safety is job number one, number two, number three. We're focused on all aspects of public safety, including safety for our children, our educators at school, and also in their communities, in their neighborhoods. We have a groundbreaking, nation-leading program where we remove guns from the hands of people who are prohibited from having them under the law because of a criminal conviction or a restraining order or a disqualifying mental health condition that doesn't allow them to have a gun, but we know they have the gun. And so we remove those guns before harm can be done. We're very supportive of robust and appropriate use of red flag laws that help identify indications on, through statements that are made or posts that are made on social media about a plan to harm others using a gun, and the restraining order can help have the gun removed before the harm can be visited on anyone else and anyone can get hurt. We are involved in deep gun violence intervention programs, violence intervention programs that focus on folks who are involved in a large amount of gun violence and really provide them support and different pathways to so that they end up putting their guns down. When it comes to hate, we've been very focused on hate crimes. I created a racial justice bureau my first week as AG to make sure that no one is targeted, hurt, or harmed because of how they look, because of their race, because of their ethnicity, because of their identity. We also do work with communities, including schools and educators and leaders, with our Office of CARE, Community Awareness, Response, and Engagement, where we're on the ground meeting in circles and at tables with leaders, identifying problems, co-creating solutions together. We've also worked to help prevent hate crimes from happening. We know that hate incidents can become hate crimes, and that circles of better understanding and cross-cultural awareness can help remove the possibility of hate crimes ever manifesting. So there's a lot of areas where we're working. We've also supported different laws that tackle cyberbullying and bullying in person that help make our schools safer. So we know there's more to do here, but please know that it's a priority for us, and we're a partner with you in making our schools safer. And if we can work on anything in the future, legislation or other initiatives, I'd be proud to do that with you.
We're going to take you up on it. We're definitely going to take you up on it. I just echo the thoughts there of our members, of people appreciating your words, your actions, and just more than anything, just standing behind the system here at this critical moment. Attorney General, I want to give you the last word, but we really appreciate you giving us your time here today.
No, my honor to be with you. I just want to thank you. Thanks for all you do for our children, our parents, our schools, for our state. We are in this together. I've always promised myself I won't curse and I won't here, but we are freaking California. We are strong. We are resilient. We are on a path to progress that we will continue on, and we're not seeking any fights with the federal administration. But if the federal administration gets in the way of our progress, we're going to defend ourselves. We're going to fight back. We're going to push back. Nothing is changing with respect to who we are, our values, our future, and what we will do for our children, for our schools. So we're all in this together. I think we're at our best when we have each other's back, when we lock arms. Please know that I have your back. My arms are locked with yours, and I'm your partner. I got your back in the fights ahead. I know there'll be many, but nothing that I know that we won't be able to overcome if we fight together and team up and stay focused. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, California Attorney General Rob Bonta, thanks again for being here. We'll look forward to more time with you here in the future.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. That was great. I know we're always appreciative when we have our state leaders. I think so many of the things that he said there just resonated. I think very much in the theme. He didn't hear our conversation leading into it, but I think if nothing else, and I think that I reckon back to what we heard yesterday, actually on our legislative lunch break, that these words do matter. Him just echoing the support of folks that may be fearing that fear, regardless of what may be happening on different lands, that there is a community of leaders, educators, and I appreciate what he said there at the end. This is kind of echoes the ACSA perspective. We're not looking to go and find things that, well, we're going to be against the federal government, right? That this is really about, let's stand by our values here. And whether it be the state front or on the federal front, that we'll act as necessary. So that really resonated with me. So a lot of thanks to him and his team for being here with us today.